Megan Hicks of I Run Far. I'm with Tim Tollefson. He's the third place finisher of the 2019 Madeira Island Ultra-Trail. Good morning, Tim. This is take 5 on this interview.
I really do feel like Bill Murray right now. Groundhog Day. Yeah, good morning, everyone.
So it's mid-morning here at Madeira Island. It's been, 12, 15 hours, 18 hours since you finished. How's the body feeling?
Progressively better.
Okay.
Definitely the first 6 to 10 hours after the race were just miserable. And the race itself is pretty difficult and challenging and uncomfortable. And then the aftermath, though, is equally, if not more so, kind of painstaking. And I was talking to Lindsay or Billy or someone, and I was like, our sport is not right. Like, why are we doing this? This is seriously ridiculous. In that race, I did thoroughly enjoy maybe 7 or 8 hours of it.
Okay.
And then the final 6 to 7 hours, it was like, this is ridiculous. Like, why am I doing this? I could just stop at any point. But that's like the closer you get to the finish, then you don't want to let those other 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours go to waste. But it's just a tough sport, but we do it to ourselves.
Okay, so in fairness, every distance of racing has its own challenge. The 400 is inherently really painful for the final 100
Or
meters.
the 800 is one of the hardest races on the face of the earth.
Right. Those you generally recover pretty quickly. It's like a minute of just sheer awfulness afterwards, and then you're generally okay. Do you ever question why you've chosen ultra running as your path, given that the race involves suffering and then the post-race involves plenty of more suffering?
Pretty much on a weekly basis, especially after these. I did actually tell Lindsay last night, I love so much about the sport, that's why I'm still in it, but when I go through something like this, it makes me question how long is my body actually going to hold up to it.
Right.
It's demanding, both emotionally, physically, from a an endocrine standpoint. A lot of different systems in the body probably aren't going to be real sustainable if we're not careful, and as we've seen in the past with some greats in the sport. But it's hard. It's a tough sport, and it does make me miss something like the mile or the marathon, where you see an end in sight and it's right there. With something like this, where it took me 14 and a half hours, or longer races, or people took 32 hours. It doesn't feel like the end is ever in sight. And so I think the amount of mental fortitude that it takes for something like this is on sort of a different level than those short, intense, high, very painful races like 800 or so. Yeah.
Well, let's back up to the hours of goodness that you did have in your race. The race fired off from midnight in Porto Moniz, which is a little town on the north side of the island. Talk about the early hours of the race and what that was like for you.
Sure. It was a beautiful night. There was a pretty stiff breeze out there, but it was kind of warm, so I didn't find the temperature, intolerable at all. And found myself just in a nice pack with Seth and a few other guys trailing Francois for the first climb. And then as we went into the second climb, I ended up kind of overtaking a bunch of people incidentally. And then during that second climb, it's a pretty long one. Oh no, not that one. I was just kind of running by myself, and which was nice because that second descent is really steep, and my knee issue that I've been dealing with, I was concerned about, and
You were feeling it there?
I was feeling it, but also I was concerned more for what was to come, and because I was by myself, I was able to just run my own pace.
Okay.
So I took the descent actually quite easy. I even walked some of the areas that were really bad, just because I was being extra cautious. I didn't want to just completely blow out kind of the knee or create an issue where with 12 more hours facing me. But then probably on the third climb, Francois caught up to me, and then for the next maybe 5 hours, we basically were running together and had a lot of fun, actually, and him and Jermaine. And we just had a nice little pack of 3 guys, taking turns leading. I probably led a majority of some of those miles. but it was honestly just a super fun night, like running across the island in the jungle. Kind of felt like Ferngullian areas where it's just so green and lush. You have this kind of overhanging jungle experience, but the moon was also like kind of peeking out along the way, and yeah, it was super fun actually. Like I didn't think about time, distance, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, a couple of hours just went by, and those are the types of races that you feel like things are just clicking, and which early on is pretty nice when that happens.
A nice feeling.
Yeah.
Now I think ultimately it ended up being like almost a marathon's distance, a little under a marathon, that the three of you were together, and like I think there was a little bit of leapfrogging going on, but were you guys like legit working together and spending time together, or what was that like?
We were. There was actually, I think maybe it was the third descent. I found that one probably the most technical of the race. You're kind of going down this rutted out gully, and at one point Jermaine, he fell, and so Francois and I stopped and went back to make sure he was okay, and then Francois fell, and then like Francois was like 1-1-0, and then I fell, and he's like 1-1-1, and so we were keeping track of how many times everyone fell, but we were just kind of having a good time, and I would say we were basically working together, and then at one point there was I can't remember where, it was before the climb before we dropped down to the halfway point where the drop bags were, and
at Corral.
Yeah, and there's a really steep ascent there. Like you're going up you're next to a pipeline, and you're basically going up steps that is almost steep enough you could have a ladder. And I was hurting at that point, and I think they both noticed it, so they ended up kind of probably like pushing a little bit, because I kept seeing them turn around to look. I could see their headlamp.
To see if they were losing you or not.
And I was like, oh, touche, guys. Like, I thought we were just having fun here. And
we're racing already. I didn't know.
I was like, the night is young. And then we got up to like this more Lovato where it was a nice flat area, and at that point I was feeling really good because the flat runnable sections are just kind of relatively easy for me, but at that point I kind of pulled a little rope-a-dope on them where I held back intentionally, kind of maybe 25-30 meters, where I could see their headlamps but I didn't want to make contact with them, and they kept looking back, and I was like, they're going to start squeezing the pace more, and I was hoping maybe they'd tire themselves out unnecessarily while I'm just kind of recovering and hanging out. And then eventually I caught back up to them, and I was like, bonjour, and
I'm back.
But yeah, it was fun. And then when I had the lead, sometimes I was actually, especially on those flat sections, I could hear them breathing kind of hard. So I would just start ratcheting it down a little bit, just to kind of test to see how they would respond. And so I think there were some little tactics going on in there, but nothing. Obviously it was early, 6, 7, 8 hours into the race, so there was a lot of time left. And then the next where we saw you at Corral. I was feeling good off that big descent going in, but then when we left, like they both had a crew, they got out of there really quickly, and I was like fumbling, finding my drop bag and like trying to figure that out, and then I never saw them basically again after that, and then I sort of went into my own little demise. But
yeah, on the long climb from Corral to Pico Revo,
oof.
You lost a lot of time on those
I lost a
there.
lot.
I think including your extra time in the aid station, you lost 14 minutes between the inbound at Corral and the peak.
And that was probably like 10 kilometers or something?
10.5K.
Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. I was suffering, like going up that climb. And it's not a particularly steep climb, but it's long and steady.
Yep.
And I just got into not even a bad mental space, but physically I was feeling lightheaded, almost starting to think like, am I going to enter that like hallucinogenic kind of state, And I was eating and drinking, but I just kind of was in a funk. And then at some point, Diego passed me, and he asked me if I was all right, and I was like, not really, but like I'm just gonna keep going. And it was kind of nice to have him there, like, because it gave me something to kind of like switch back into like, oh, let's chase him down. But no, I just really struggled, and then from there to the finish, basically all the uphills progressively got worse for me, and I think that is a testament to the lack of like preparation I had in training for that much gain in a race. And obviously I did more running in prep than someone like Francois did, but I think that he had an incredible amount of just vertical.
Tons of ski vertical in.
And so, if I end up doing something like this again, I need to probably implement that if we have a big winter like we did. But
time to buy I don't know, a Stairmaster or a weird
that's actually,
Versa climber or something.
Lindsay suggests that because she loves the Stairmaster.
Okay.
And I just...
You guys can have Stairmaster Sunday dates or something.
Yeah.
Bam, 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 bam.
I'll stick to the skiing, I think.
Okay.
I just need to be outside. But yeah, I think towards the last 5 hours of the race, I really struggled on the climbs, and it was just my fitness wasn't quite there, I don't think.
I want to ask you for a minute about the section between the island's high point, Pico Ruivo, and the next peak. It was 5.5 kilometers. It's really steep. You're kind of following this spiny ridge line, then you drop down, you go through a couple tunnels. There's some stairs bolted into the cliff faces. What?
Yeah. So
when I saw your split coming to Pico Ruivo, having fallen quite far back from who you had been with, I was like, uh-oh, is this the beginning of Tim Tollefson's demise? But then you showed up at Pico Herrero and you said, well, my climbing legs are cooked, but I'm fine otherwise, and you were in good spirits. That section did not break you. What did you think of it?
I thought it was awesome.
Okay.
It was super fun because, like you said, you're going down these steep staircases that they're definitely taller than they are deep, where it's and you have to hold on to the rails to get down them, and then it's mixed in with these just little pathways right on the edge of the cliff that you have probably 500 meters just below you or maybe more, and then you're entering tunnels, and I just thought the variety was neat, something you don't typically find on a race course.
Okay.
What was really hard though is, so this was daylight now, and when you go through those tunnels, some of them are long and it's pitch dark in there, and my headlamp was in my pack because I put it away at the aid state or the halfway, and I couldn't see a thing.
You just
and I was holding onto the walls, and then at one point I was like, this is kind of dumb, I'm gonna trip on something, because I had no idea what the footing was like. I was like, if I trip and go down, it's gonna be embarrassing. I hurt myself. I could have just taken 30 seconds to get out my headlamp, but I was being stubborn. I didn't want to, and so I'm sitting there holding on the walls, going through there, can't see a thing, and then I dropped a pole. And I was like, shit.
Now I'm never gonna
And I turned around and I was on the ground, feeling around in the darkness because I couldn't find the pole. And I was like, damn it. And I almost pulled out my headlamp, and then I found it. I was like, okay, I gripped the poles really tight. And then I just was tiptoeing towards, but I walked through the whole tunnel because I didn't want to fall. But it was just kind of, it's something different, kind of mixes it up, especially when you're 10 hours into something and you need something to kind of change your attitude and mindset. So I really enjoyed it. And that part of the course, you're up basically traversing that ridgeline between the two high points, and it's stunning. It was a beautiful day, really windy, but again, it wasn't cold, which was nice.
Totally clear though. The clouds
you could see
were
so
below
much.
you.
Yeah, it was awesome. I had fun. So maybe that's where I wasn't trying to pick anything up, but maybe I just didn't lose more ground because I got engaged in a different a different way.
You said, I don't remember your exact words, but you said when you passed me at Pico Herrera at the end of that 5K section, you said something like, I'm gonna pick off so and so. You were in fourth position then, I think. And you ultimately did move up into third place. So what was going on in your head? Were you like, I'm gonna be fine when I get to the runnable stuff, I'm gonna pick off somebody?
Yeah, my thought was that, and now that I recall, I told you I'm gonna pick off Jordy, but I meant Diego.
Okay.
And because right before Pico Ruivo, on the climb, Diego just hammered me, I didn't stand a chance, but then we'd hit flats and I would make up ground on him. I was like, oh, this is a good sign. I can't climb right now, but I can run flat. And then the downs, I felt pretty good. And so in my mind, I thought, looking at the course map, the final 15 kilometers or so is pretty much, along levados or down and then flat and then down. I thought, well, if I can keep my legs in somewhat decent shape in the final 15, 20 kilometers, I should be able to make up 5, 10 plus minutes on someone like Diego. So that was what I said. I was like, I think I can catch Diego. But it turns out I ended up catching Jermaine, which he fell and hurt himself.
Okay.
But yeah, I was hopeful. But then it got to the point where someone said, oh, Diego's only a few minutes in front of you. And I started hammering some of the downs, but I ended up kind of blowing my quads doing that.
Oh, is that right?
And then when we actually hit the flat section, which is so beautiful when you're traversing along the coastline, underneath the cliffs, but you're on this path that was like cut out into the side of the cliff. You're 1,000 feet up above the ocean. Absolutely stunning. I could barely run because like I toasted my quads, and I was like, damn it, like I'm gonna get caught by 4th or 5th or 6th place.
Because
like,
I can't run the
because I
runnable
can't,
stuff.
like,
I'm supposed to be a runner.
So yeah, I had a really hard finish, and even though it's pretty much flat for the final 10K, it was really challenging, never ending. It just felt like I was never actually going to get to the finish line.
Finishing in a podium position at a big, internationally competitive long mountain ultra is now a very familiar place for you.
Yeah, it is.
It's getting more and more familiar by the race.
I think if we were betting, it might be a sure one. I did kind of look back through in like Ultra-Trail World Tour races. I've done 10 of them now. And
really?
I think, yeah,
wow.
yeah. And
you're taking the world tour.
I'm trying to get my passport. I hear I get some cool little like poster.
But the problem is they add races every year.
Yeah, I know. I'll never get there. I think I have 6 second or thirds and 1 first place.
Okay.
And you know, I made some comment yesterday on Twitter that I feel like the Des Linden of Ultra-Trail World Tour, or like, you know, ultra majors, where I am always a bridesmaid. But
then there's that one time.
Yeah, but you know, if I keep showing up, it's going to happen. Like, and that's kind of, you know, for most of us that aren't, you know, the gods like Killian or Francois or Pau, I just feel like, you know, we're striving for that perfect day, and it's what's going to keep me going after it. Like,
so it took like record rain and wind conditions at Boston for, you know, Des to really show her strength. Are we talking like a blizzard of a couple feet of snow?
I would love that at UTMB. Like, if we could, you know, drum that up, I think that would be my year. But
so you're saying there's a chance.
And I always have to remind myself I'm entering my 5th year of ultra running, so I'm, you know, compared to some people, I'm still relatively, you know, new to the game. So I think there's a lot of stuff I can continue to learn and grow upon, and for the most part, I'm excited for it. So, you know, hopefully I will get my day someday. But even, you know, let's say I didn't, and I keep getting, well, even if I don't even podium anymore, like, I think it's pretty awesome to be able to do this, like, and have the opportunities.
Madeira Island,
yeah, it's not too shabby. I still think it's pretty bland, and it's not that. Like, if we look that way towards the mountains, it's better.
Fortunately, the ocean has not, like, come after us since that interview a few days ago where you said you hate I think it was I hate the ocean.
I have been known to say that. Yeah.
Well, last question for you. Where else are you planning to race in 2019?
Yeah, that's, right now I'm on the U.S. team for the World Champs, which is in 5 weeks back in Portugal.
It's pretty quick, yeah.
I know. So, but I need to see how we recover after this.
Okay.
I'm going to take a full week off, which I normally don't do, but even leading into this race with the knee problem, I think it was just it was highlighting that my body was starting to kind of crack, and so I need a proper break. So I'm going to take a week off, and I'm going to focus probably on skiing for the next week or two. Okay. Just kind of, you know, do something different, and then if I feel like I can recover and get, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks of training, I'd love to do it, because I believe it's only 44K, so it's technically an ultra, but that's my style. Like, you know, maybe 2,000 meters of vert. So I think that could be a super fun race to do. Other than that, I'm looking at UTMB, and then some, maybe 1 or 2 personal projects, but kind of up in the air right now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope you recover quick, so
Thanks.
we see you at the Trail World Championships.
Will you be there?
We'll be there.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe I won't go then.
Probably better.
Yeah, we've done enough interviews.
Yeah. Well, congratulations
Thank you.
to you on your podium finish.
Thank you. Thanks for being out there.
We'll see you back in Portugal, perhaps.
Okay. Oh, happy anniversary, Lindsay.
Oh, is it really your anniversary?
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we've been together 14 years.
Oh.
Yeah, something like that.
You got married 14 years ago?
Oh, actually, so no, we've been together 14 years. This is our wedding anniversary today, and I don't know how long that's been.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of like you guys.
How long has it been?
I think 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
But it was like, we eloped. Just parents showed up, and so to us it was more a procedural thing to kind of move forward and get around my health insurance, and we knew we were going to be together, but it didn't feel like a wedding. Yeah.
Well, happy day of making it legal, Lindsay.
Yes. We beat the system.